Okay, I think we're live. Just waiting for OBS to catch up. Okay, YouTube's caught up. How's OBS doing? OBS looks like it's doing fine. Let's hop right in. Alright, where are we looking? By the way, if there's an echo, someone let me know. Fortunately, I'm having trouble getting rid of that echo, so I'm not really sure why it's there. I finished McKinnon. Oh, here we go. Problems with sex-gender distinction. 3.1 is gender uniform. The positions outlined above share an underlying metaphysical perspective on gender realism. That is, women as a group are assumed to share some characteristic, experience, common condition, or criterion that defines their gender, and the possession of which makes some individuals, as opposed to, say, men, and the possession of which makes some individuals women, as opposed to, say, men. Okay. All women are thought to differ from all men in this respect, or respects. Okay, so it's just asking what is the criteria that sort of like meaningfully identifies women as opposed to not being women. Okay. For example, McKinnon thought that being treated in sexually objectifying ways is the common condition that defines gender and what women as women share. All women differ from men in this respect. Although clearly not in the real, well, I don't know, I'd have to read more McKinnon. Furthermore, pointing out females who are not sexually objectified does not. Now, I was about to begin to talk about this. Furthermore, pointing out females who are not sexually objectified does not provide a counterpoint to McKinnon's view. Being sexually objectified is constitutive. I have troubles with that word, evidently. Constitutive of being a woman. A female who escapes sexual objectification, then, would not count as a woman. One may want to critique the three accounts outlined by rejecting particular details of each account. For instance, see Spellman, 1988, Chapter 4, for critique of the details of Chodorov's view. A more thoroughgoing critique has been leveled at the general metaphysical perspective of gender realism that underlies these positions. It has come under sustained attack on two grounds. First, that it fails to take into account racial, cultural, and class differences between women, particularity argument. Second, that it posits a normative ideal of womanhood, normativity argument. 3.1.1, particularity argument. Elizabeth Spellman, 1988, has influentially argued against gender realism with her particularity argument. Roughly, gender realists mistakenly assume that gender is constructed independently of race, class, ethnicity, and nationality. If gender were separable from, for example, race and class in this manner, all women would experience womanhood in this way. And this is clearly false. For instance, Harris, 1993, and Stone, 2007, criticized McKinnon's view that sexual justification is the common condition that defines women's gender, for failing to take into account differences in women's background that shape their sexuality. The history of racist oppression illustrates that during slavery, black women were hypersexualized and thought to be always sexually available, whereas white women were thought to be pure and sexually virtuous. In fact, the rape of a black woman was thought to be impossible, Harris, 1993. So, the argument goes, sexual objectification cannot serve as the common condition for womanhood, since it varies considerably depending on one's race and class. For Spellman, the perspective of white solipsism underlies gender realists' mistake. They assume that all women share some golden nugget of womanness, Spellman, 1988, and that the features constitutive, I'm never going to be able to say that word, constitutive, the ones that constitute such a nugget are all the same for a woman regardless of their particular cultural backgrounds. Next, white Western middle-class feminists accounted for the shared features simply by reflecting on the cultural features that condition their gender as women, thus supposing that the, quote, the womanness underneath the black woman's skin is a white woman's, and deep down inside the Latina woman is an Anglo woman waiting to burst through an obscuring cultural cloud, Spellman, 1988. In so doing, Spellman claims white middle-class Western feminists passed off their particular view of gender as a, quote, as a metaphysical truth, 1988, thereby privileging some women while marginalizing others, and failing to see the importance of race and class in gender construction. White middle-class Western feminists conflated the condition of one group of women with the condition of all, Spellman, 1988. Quote, the condition of one group of women with the condition of all, unquote, Spellman, 1988. So this is where intersectionality becomes important. What is the experience of a woman? Well, you need more information. If all you ask is, what is the experience of a woman, and you have no more information, you don't know race, you don't know class, you don't know where they're living, I mean, you can make certain statements, but it gets real hard real fast. So that's kind of the idea of what we're getting at here, I believe. Again, if my mic is echoey, I apologize. I am working on that. I'm doing this as a hobby, and don't have much time to throw into it yet. Betty Friedan's 1963 well-known work is a case in point of white solipsism. Friedan saw domesticity as the main vehicle of gender oppression and called upon women in general to find jobs outside the home. But she failed to realize that women from less privileged backgrounds, often poor and non-white, already worked outside the home to support their families. Friedan's suggestion, then, was applicable only to a particular subgroup of women, white, middle-class Western housewives. But it was mistakenly taken to apply to all women's lives, a mistake that was generated by Friedan's failure to take women's racial and class differences into account. Hooks, 2000. Spellman further holds that since social conditioning creates femininity and societies and subgroups that social conditioning creates femininity and societies and subgroups that condition it differ from one another, femininity must be differently conditioned in different societies. For her, females become not simply women, but particular kinds of women, Spellman, 1988. White working-class women, black middle-class women, poor Jewish women, wealthy aristocratic European women, and so on. This line of thought has been extremely influential in feminist philosophy. For instance, Young holds that Spellman has definitively shown that gender realism is untenable, 1997. Mikola, 2006, argues this isn't so. The argument Spellman makes do not undermine the idea that there is some characteristic feature, experience, common condition, or criterion that defines women's gender. They simply point out that some particular ways of cashing out what defines womanhood are misguided. So though Spellman is right to reject those grounds that falsely take the feature that conditions white middle-class Western feminists' gender to condition women's gender in general, this leaves open the possibility that women, qua women, which is women as women, as it were, do share something that defines their gender. See also Haslanger, 2000A, for a discussion of why gender realism is not necessarily untenable, and Stoliar, 2011, for a discussion of Mikola's critique of Spellman. So yeah, basically the idea we're getting at is there some trait that is held by all and only women, such that it serves as a reliable distinguisher from a woman to a non-woman, as it were? That's sort of the question that's being asked there, I believe. 3.1.2 Normativity Argument. Judith Butler critiques the sex-gender distinction on two grounds. She critiques gender realism with her normativity argument, 1993. She also holds that the sex-gender distinction is unintelligible. This will be discussed in section 3.3. Butler's normativity argument is not straightforwardly directed at the metaphysical perspective of gender realism, but rather at its political counterpart, identity politics. This is a form of political mobilization based on membership in some group, e.g. racial, ethnic, cultural, gender. And group membership is thought to be delimited by some common experiences, conditions, or features that define the group. Hayes, 2058, see also the entry on identity politics. Feminist identity politics, then, presupposes gender realism in that feminist politics is said to be mobilized around women as a group or category, while membership in this group is fixed by some condition, experience, or feature that women supposedly share, and that defines their gender. Butler's normativity argument makes two claims. The first is akin to Spellman's particularity argument. Unitary gender notions fail to take differences amongst women into account, thus failing to recognize the multiplicity of cultural, social, and political intersections in which the concrete array of, and should let people know when these are quotes, to recognize, quote, the multiplicity of cultural, social, and political intersections in which the concrete array of women are constructed, and women was also in quotes, and constructed is the end of the quote. Butler, 1999. In their attempt to undercut biologically deterministic ways of defining what it means to be a woman, feminists inadvertently created new socially constructed accounts of supposedly shared femininity. Butler's second claim is that such false gender realist accounts are normative. That is, in their attempt to fix feminism's subject matter, feminists unwittingly define the term woman in a way that implies there's some correct way to be gendered a woman. that the definition of the term woman is fixed supposedly operates as a policing force which generates and legitimizes certain practices, experiences, etc., and curtails and delegitimizes others. Nicholson, 1998. I mean, the definition of the term is fixed. I mean, definitions need, words need to have a common enough usage so that they're useful, because if their usage is so multifaceted, then the use of the word becomes difficult, because it's difficult to know what is being communicated without further contextualization. At the same time, granted, words can mean what we want them to mean, or words can be used how we want them to be used, specifically. Following this line of thought, one could say, for example, Chotaro's view of gender suggests that real women, and that's in quotes, real women, have feminine personalities, and that these are the women feminism should be concerned about. If one does not exhibit a distinctly feminine personality, the implication is that one is not really a member of women's category, nor does one properly qualify for feminist political representation. Butler's second claim is based on a view that, quote, identity categories, like that of women, are never merely descriptive, but always normative, and as such exclusionary, unquote, Butler, 1981. That is, the mistake of those feminist Butler critiques was not that they provided the incorrect definition of woman. Rather, the argument goes, their mistake was to attempt to define the word woman at all. Butler's view is that woman can never be defined in a way that does not prescribe some unspoken normative requirements, like having a feminine personality, that woman should conform to. Butler takes this to be a feature of terms like woman that purport to pick out what she calls identity categories. She seems to assume that woman can never be used in a non-ideological way, and that it will always encode conditions that are not satisfied by everyone we think of as a woman. Yeah, but I mean, that shows up all the time, though, right? Like, attempting to come up with a definition for art that encompasses all and only those things we consider to be art, and even, I mean, who considers what to be art isn't even set in stone, so, I mean, that's nothing new there, at least. Some explanations for this come from Butler's view that all processes of drawing categories in categorical distinctions involve evaluative and normative commitments. These, in turn, involve the exercise of power and reflect the conditions of those who are socially powerful. In order to better understand Butler's critique, consider her account of gender performativity. For her, standard feminist accounts take gendered individuals to have some essential properties qua gendered individuals, or a gendered core by virtue of which one is either a man or woman. Okay, so like an essence of femininity or an essence of masculinity. Okay. This idea assumes that women and men, qua women and men, are bearers of various essential and accidental attributes, where the former secure gendered persons' persistence through various essential and accidental attributes, where the former, where the former, which is to say essential, the former, okay, so basically saying is that the essential attribute secure gendered person's persistence through time as so gendered. So there is some quality that sort of makes one a man or a woman, and it is the thing which through time continues to make you a man or a woman. But according to Butler, this view is false. One, there are no such essential properties, and two, gender is an illusion maintained by prevalent power structures. First, feminists are said to think that genders are socially constructed in that they have the following essential attributes. Butler, 1999. Women are females with feminine behavioral traits, being heterosexuals whose desires directed at men. Men are males with masculine behavioral traits, being heterosexuals whose desires directed at women. These are the attributes necessary for gendered individuals, and those that enable women and men to persist through time as women and men. Individuals have, quote, intelligible genders, unquote. Butler, 1999. If they exhibit this sequence of traits in a coherent manner, where sexual desire follows from sexual orientation, that in turn follows from feminine and masculine behaviors thought to follow from biological sex. Social forces in general deem individuals who exhibit incoherent gender sequences, like lesbians, to be doing their gender wrong, and they actively discourage such sequences of traits, for example, via name-calling and overt homophobic discrimination. Think back to what is said above, having a certain conception of what women are like that mirrors the conditions of socially powerful, white, middle-class, heterosexual women. Women functions to Western women functions to marginalize and police those who do not fit this conception. These gendered cores, supposedly encoding the above traits, however, are nothing more than illusions created by ideals and practices that seek to render gender uniform through heterosexism, the view that heterosexuality is natural and that homosexuality is deviant. Butler, 1999. Gender cores are constructed as if they somehow naturally belong to women and men, thereby creating gender dimorphism, or the belief that one must be either a masculine male or a feminine female. But gender dimorphism only serves a heterosexist social order by implying that since women and men are sharply opposed, it is naturally to sexually desire the opposite sex or gender. And my throat is getting dry now, and I'm going to go ahead and end it there. I hope some folks learned some stuff. We're going to be finishing this up bit by bit. Thanks for watching along.